Hello and welcome to the GTFOutcast. My name is Bo Woods. It's been a while since we've come to you live from wherever we are in the world, but we are back. I'm joined today by my co-host, Taylor Banks. Say hi, Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
Comedian.
Yeah.
We're joined by a very special guest today, GK Southwick. GK, why don't you say hi and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hey, folks. All right, well, let's see. I don't know where to start as far as telling. I am currently, I guess my job is the best place to start, the community manager for the OWASP Foundation, where I help to organize new chapters and shut down defunct ones and manage merchandise orders for the chapters and conferences. And it's a pretty fun job, pretty kickback, a little stressful sometimes, but not definitely enjoying it for as long as I've been here. I'm also the president of the board and producer for B-Sides Las Vegas, which is a smallish information security conference that happens in between Black Hat and DEF CON in Las Vegas in either late July or early August every year. This will be our 6th annual. It's our 5th anniversary. So we're looking forward to that on August 5th and 6th. And I do a lot of volunteer work with a lot of conferences, so I travel a lot. So I can get around I go to Source Boston. I personally live in Denver. I'm based out of Denver right now. I go to Source Boston, obviously Las Vegas. I'm heading over to Europe tomorrow, actually, to run volunteers for Area 41 Con in Switzerland, in Zurich. And then that will be followed up by a couple of weeks kicking around Europe, mostly Brussels as a home base, but kicking around going to Amsterdam and Berlin and Latvia to see various friends while I'm out there, and then going to Cambridge in the UK for the AppSec EU conference at the end of June. At this point, my return flight isn't booked, so I very well may be kicking it there for a little while longer and staying for B-Sides Manchester, I think, is happening, or is it, there's another B-Sides that's going on almost immediately after AppSec EU, and I think SteelCon is also happening right about that time, too.
Strong am I with the Force.
So, sorry, let me turn my phone down. Yeah, right now it's an open-ended ticket on the return. I'm not quite sure when I'm coming back, but I'm really looking forward to spending a month in Europe, hanging out and catching up with friends and meeting new ones. Absolutely.
Very
ticket
cool.
is awesome, and I think that's a pretty good fit with what we got going on here at GTFOutcast. I think that's symbolic of kind of the way we like to do things around here, right? Just book some travel, get out and go, and come back if and when the time is appropriate.
Yeah.
Yep. So Taylor and I have both known GK for a while, and when we heard that she was going on an epic trip around Europe, we figured we needed to have her on the podcast. So it's been a long time in planning, and now it's finally happened that we've gotten the band back together for the podcast, and you're our welcome guest here.
Thank you. And I'm honored to be your first guest as the podcast kicks back on again.
Yeah, so I've got a lot of questions. There's a lot of things that I want to talk about. I think for this podcast, one of the intentions was we wanted to help you plan it. We wanted to help you, give you the benefit of our experience on traveling around in Europe, as well as just the logistics of it, packing, whatever. But I wanted to start out maybe with some questions on what you've done so far. So I think one of the places to start is, for a lot of people, they've never bought an open-ended ticket. So talk to us about the difference between an open-ended ticket, what that means, and how you get it.
Well, I had the option of booking my flight through work. We use Concur and TripIt through Amex Global, and I looked at what they had to offer, and I could only get round-trip tickets. I couldn't do anything one way unless I wanted to jump through some serious hoops. And they also wanted a lot more money for a flight because they only deal with some of the middle to high-end airlines. They don't do cheap flights. So I looked around online a little bit, and I found this website called Rome to Rio. And I asked them what would be the cheapest way for me to get to Zurich, because I didn't want to necessarily fly directly into Zurich if that wasn't going to be the best way to go. And they came back, and this is on less than 30 days' notice. They came back with a deal for about $700 for the flight from Seattle to Frankfurt, and then I'm taking a train from Frankfurt to Zurich that is only costing me about another $100, I think, $130 maybe, and I'm going first class on the ICE. But the difference between an open-ended ticket, obviously, in a round trip is you just say you only want to go one way. Usually those flights are a little bit more expensive because they want to give you a deal for going to, coming back. And from what I understand, there may be some hoops that I have to jump through with the State Department to explain why I don't have a return flight. But that's that's a bridge I'll cross when I get there. I'm not really too worried about it because I will eventually be coming home. I'm not going to be spending my life over there, although I can't say I wouldn't mind.
Right.
But this is really the first time I've ever booked an open-ended ticket. So I'm not quite sure how this is going to work on the flight back. It may be outrageously expensive to get home because I'm not booking a month out.
Right.
But luckily, work's paying for it, at least this time around. They might not do this for me again, but when I'm ready to come home, or within 2 weeks of being ready to come home, I figure I'll start sourcing return flights.
Yeah, that's great. And I'll tell you, my experience has been going into Europe, they really just care, when are you leaving? And you just tell them a date that's like, 30 days from now, I'm going, my plans are I'm going to fly into here, and then I'm leaving through the UK, and then from the UK back to Denver or whatever. In going into the UK, they're a little bit more strict. So they would love to see you have a return flight out or some kind of a return ticket. They probably won't hassle you too much. Just keep in mind that if you say you're there for work, they might not take too kindly to that. So something like business meetings or attending a conference, that is the type of thing that they would expect to hear for what you're actually doing.
Right.
So it's in some ways social engineering the border guards, but really it's just social engineering them to very quickly and easily process you into the bucket that you need to be in.
And it's certainly not lying by any stretch of the imagination. It's just not telling the whole truth.
Oh, well, and they don't need the whole truth, right?
Yeah.
They need the part of the truth to help them make the determination as to, what status to put you in and whether or not to flag you for a secondary screening, to go and say, well, you need a work visa to be here, sorry, we're going to have to send you back to where you came from.
So does that apply when you're taking the train in from Brussels too?
Yes. They'll ask you the same questions. And actually, if you're coming in from Brussels, you would be taking the Channel Tunnel, which actually runs kind of through Paris. It runs through France, and then it goes up. And so you may even go through border guard in Brussels. I would expect that, actually.
Okay.
So on the second point you brought up, buying a plane ticket back, what I found is that prices can differ radically depending on where you're going and where you're coming from. So, for instance, I just came back from Portugal, and Lisbon to Boston was like €300 or €400. I think it was like €300, which is about $450, something like that, maybe a little bit less. And that was a one-way ticket to go from like Madrid to New York, which is not substantially farther. It was around $700 or $800. So you can definitely find cheap deals to come back, reasonable deals to come back, and you can find outrageously expensive deals. I think from London to New York, it was like $1,200 one way, something like that.
Wow. Yeah.
So Taylor is on limited bandwidth, as he usually is these days, traveling in an RV. But he's got some questions for you too. He wants to know, where are you staying? What type of accommodation are you planning to stay in during the trip? It sounds like you've got some variety of different types of places you're going to stay, whether it's a hotel or with friends or whatever. But just talk a little bit about that, about the planning that you did there. Whether you booked through a website, whether you called up the places, whether you just did through email, whether you, talk about that part of your planning process.
Well, again, I think in this case I got really lucky. When I get to Switzerland, I'm being put up by the conference because I'm running volunteers for them, so they're providing me with the hotel room at the preferred conference venue in Zurich. I think I have 4 or 5 nights accommodation there. I'm getting in Friday night, my hotel room. I'll be checking in Friday when I get in, and then I have Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I think I'm checking out Wednesday morning. And then I'll be taking, it's still undetermined at this point. My friends who live in Brussels are driving into Zurich. They're renting a car and driving to Zurich for the conference. So I may or may not drive back with them, or I may catch a train just because I love the train system so much. And that way I can work while I'm traveling, because if I'm in the car with them, I won't have enough internet to be able to do any actual work. Once we get to Brussels, my girlfriend has a spare guest room. So I'll be staying in her guest room for the 3 weeks or so that I'm staying with her. And the side trips that we take to Berlin, Amsterdam, Latvia, when we get to Latvia, I know it's a weekend trip that we're going to be staying with one of the guys that's a friend of theirs that's having a little hackathon at his house.
Oh, cool.
So it's probably going to be kind of a camping trip. We might be posting up in his backyard. The Berlin and Amsterdam trips will more than likely just be day trips, which is easy enough to do from Brussels. So I'll just go in and spend, and when I get to Berlin, I have plenty of friends there, so if it turns out that I decide I want to spend the night, I know that I can just crash on somebody's couch. When I get back to Cambridge, when I get into Cambridge for AppSec EU, that again is it's a work deal. I'm going out there to facilitate chapter leader workshops and liaise for the sponsors and help run the volunteers. So while I'm there, OWASP is putting me up at the conference hotel. So I've got that covered too. But then, and I just thought about it. I said I had an open-ended ticket, which is true. And I would like to stay for a couple extra days to catch that conference in Manchester if I can. And either way, July 3rd, 4th, I think, I'm volunteering at Anime Expo in Los Angeles. I'm on the entertainment crew. I'm going to help run the main stage. And they're putting me up at a hotel there. So I'm going to be flying back into LA as opposed to flying back to Denver, doing Anime Expo, and then flying home to Denver from there after the 4th of July weekend.
Very cool. One thing I just looked up, you said Brussels to Berlin was a day trip. It's like 7 hours driving each way. So you might want to just keep that in mind. It's maybe not as short a distance as it seems from here, but Brussels to Amsterdam certainly seems like it could be a day trip, maybe an hour or 2 on train, spend some time there, and then jump back.
Yeah, I think they have puddle jumpers that go from Brussels to Berlin. You can get in, maybe not to Tegel cheaply, but there's the other Berlin airport, and it's like maybe an hour and a half flight. So
yeah. If you're wanting to do by plane, certainly it's a day trip. It just seems I don't know. I don't often go places by train for just a day, or by plane for just a day.
Right. And I'm with you on that, but if I want to see my friends in Berlin while I'm there, and I really do, because the Phenolit guys are pretty amazing to hang out with, and I want to catch up with them. So, and the Seabase guys too. Last time I was out in Berlin in 2011, I made so many friends there that if I had a place that I would call my second home, it would definitely be Berlin.
Oh wow,
the place is amazing.
Definitely day trip worthy. So, how are you traveling when you're going to travel around in terms of the baggage that you're going to have? Typically, when somebody talks about this, if they're American, they're lugging like a steamer case full of clothes and gear, and especially hackers, we like to bring our gear. But based on the itinerary you've got, it sounds like it would lend itself more towards lots of traveling light and washing your stuff when you get to some place and re-wearing, which is really common in Europe, where you you wear something for a day and then you let it air dry and then you wear it a different day. So why don't you just talk about your philosophy when you were putting together what you were going to bring over there, how much stuff you've got, and all that.
Well, I'm normally a BDUs and T-shirt kind of gal, which is perfectly acceptable for Area 41 Con because it's a serious hacker conference. It's not a corporate con by any stretch of the imagination. So I'm planning on bringing one pair of BDU pants, one pair of BDU shorts, and a couple of T-shirts. But normally when you go to conferences, you wind up acquiring T-shirts anyway, so you don't need to bring that many with you. And then for AppSec EU, because it's more of a professional conference, I'll be bringing 2 pairs of slacks and a couple of blouses, but really just enough underwear for a week. Okay. And Meredith has a washer and dryer at her place in Brussels in her apartment, so I can do laundry whenever I need to. I'm planning on bringing a relatively small suitcase. I just bought a really nice set of Atlantic luggage. It's a 5-piece set. I don't think I'm going to be using the whole thing, especially since I just found out that extra baggage on Condor Airlines is $100 a piece, which is ridiculous. I'm going to Europe for a month, and you want me to pack 1-day bag? You're funny. But yeah, it's mostly gear. That's the thing is I never travel without. I have 2 laptops. I have my OWASP laptop. I have my B-Sides Las Vegas laptop, and they have to remain separate. The keyboard's never the right size for doing any serious work, so I have a USB keyboard and mouse that go with me everywhere I go. Plus, I'll be taking my camera because I'll be having to do web conferences while I'm gone. So I have a really nice Case Logic day trip laptop case that'll fit both of my cases and my keyboard, and if I really needed to, I could put like a 1-day change of clothes in there too. But that's going to be my carry-on, and then I have a military-style backpack that I can shove everything else in. That'll be my other my carry-on number 2. That'll be my purse. And then whatever luggage I wind up having to pack, I have 1 large suitcase, which is what I'm planning on putting the bulk of it in, and then maybe one of the smaller suitcases, or maybe even just the duffel bag for all my toiletries and stuff, so it's all in one spot. I'm going to fit as much into the large suitcase as I can, though, and then see if I have to carry anything else with me. But I'm really trying to keep it to 3 pieces, 2 carry-on and 1 checked baggage. So. And typically, last time I went to Europe, I took a backpack. I had an A-frame backpack that I shoved everything in, and that way I could take it with me wherever I went and just throw it on my back and walk. But unfortunately, this time around, that backpack has disintegrated, and I haven't found a similar replacement that I like enough. So, in case as it is.
Yeah, I think travelers get pretty hung up on. I think we all have kind of a bag fetish. We find the bags that we really, really like and love, and then we can't ever replace them when they tear up. Taylor and I both have the exact same backpack just by coincidence, and mine tore up, and so I got rid of it. I was like, I'll just go get another one that's the same. I can't find another one that's anywhere close. Taylor's got the same problem. It's starting to tear up, but he refuses to let go of that thing. So we feel your pain there. When you're going over there, what are you doing for telecommunications? I would guess that you're probably bringing a phone. What about SIM cards, U.S. plan versus European plan versus different country plan, etc.?
I am planning on sticking to text. And luckily, one of the reasons why I was at T-Mobile 11 years ago when I started my plan was because Deutsche Telekom is the biggest telecom provider in Europe. And I have a SIM card in my phone, and I have international, with the exception of telephone calls, I can do anything on my phone that I have to in Europe now. Yep. They have an international plan, so I don't even have to worry about it.
Yeah, I tell you what, if you travel a lot to other countries, T-Mobile is a great plan because it's international roaming on data. They cap your speed, but still, it's free, right? All you can eat, as long as you can download it at 128K or whatever, which is fine for just getting around until you can find a Wi-Fi spot. And free texts back to the U.S. And I think for most countries, it's 20 cents a minute for a call. So it's really a great plan to have if you spend most of your time abroad. The flip side to that is if you get outside the city in the U.S., got like no coverage. I suffered through that for like a month and a half before I just finally went to a carrier that was good in the U.S. but not so great overseas.
Yeah, I actually went out and got a Verizon hotspot for travel across the country so I would have signal on my cell phone. I've been such a loyal customer to T-Mobile, and their customer service is amazing, and everything about them, their prices are more than reasonable compared to the other SIM carrier, which is AT&T. I'm very much a GSM kind of girl. I don't like CDMA. So it was either AT&T or T-Mobile, and AT&T may have better coverage, but T-Mobile has better everything else. They have better rates. They have better customer service. So I'm willing to take the trade-off on having spotty service outside of the city, because I spend most of my time in the cities anyway.
Yeah, I understand. It's definitely a trade-off, and if all my time was spent inside of a city or anything that's metro area enough, then it would be a much better option. Taylor wanted to comment that he has an unlocked phone, which I do as well, and he gets a local SIM card wherever he goes, which is always a really good option. Then he's able to forward Skype or Google Voice to the international number. So it's cheap for people in the U.S. to call. It's also cheap for him. When somebody calls you on your Skype and it forwards to international, there is a small charge associated with that, depending on what Skype package you have, or Google Voice. I don't think Google Voice does direct forwarding yet, does it, Taylor?
To an international number? Really? Okay.
I did not know that. I'll have to
I
look
have a
into
Google
that.
Voice number too that I used, and I used that a lot when I was over in Europe last time. And I actually, because T-Mobile hadn't set up the international plan yet, I bought a SIM from Deutsche Telekom, or not, it wasn't Deutsche Telekom, but one of the other. I had one from Viking when I was in Brussels, and I had another one for when I was in Germany. I actually had separate SIM cards for my phone for Europe, but I had it unlocked before I left, so it all worked out last time.
Yeah.
But this time, I think I'm just going to stick with text and the T-Mobile plan that's already, it already comes with my phone. So.
Yeah, if you have that T-Mobile plan, there's no reason, in my opinion, when you're traveling through Europe, especially where you've got good coverage with T-Mobile, to do anything but just use what you've got there. I don't think it makes much sense to get a local SIM card at that point, which is awesome. Because I tell you, if you travel through multiple countries in Europe, then you have issues where, well, you're traveling through this country for 4 days. The cost of a SIM card is like $25. It's like, I don't want to have phone for 4 days for $25. But then again, I don't want to not have phone for 4 days too.
Right.
And I actually found in one case, I was going from Poland to Germany, and it was cheaper to use my Poland SIM card in Germany than to buy a German SIM card, because the rates on the German SIM cards were so ridiculous.
Yeah, when I was over there in 2011, I was there for a CCC camp,
Okay.
and I bought a German SIM card when I was in Berlin before we even got out to camp. Yeah. And then it turns out there was really not much signal at camp. I actually had to leave camp in order to get enough signal to do anything. And it may have very well been because the cell towers were overloaded, because they only had so much bandwidth for the whole camp, and there were so many people there. But for the most part, I didn't use anywhere near enough of my SIM to justify the cost.
Yeah. Agreed. So what other kind of considerations have you had as you were planning this trip? Did you plan most of it through online research? Did you talk to people? What did you do to find the places you were going to go and to plan your transport there?
Well, like I said, I used Rome to Rio for the flight and the train, and I actually wound up booking them through a group called flightnetwork.com. That was who Rome to Rio eventually forwarded me to. And speaking of which, I have to call both Alaska Airlines and Condor as soon as we get off this call, so I can make sure I'm confirming my flights for tomorrow. And see, for the train from well, when I was pricing train from Switzerland to Brussels, I was going straight through the German transit ICE website. But now it looks like, since my friends are driving out, I'll just be able, and I'm not taking as many suitcases as I thought, because I thought I was going to be bringing out a suitcase full of nothing but merchandise for AMSEC EU, and that got canceled. So that's one less huge suitcase that I need to take with me, so they'll have room in the Mini for me and my luggage. So I'll probably, if I have to work, I'll drive back with them. Otherwise, I'll take the train from Zurich to Brussels, which is like another 130 euro, I think, and I'll just buy that at the train station. And then getting from Brussels to Cambridge, same thing. I'll be taking the train under the Channel Tunnel, and then transferring to the station in London. Across the street is the King's Cross, the express train from King's Crossing out to Cambridge.
Yeah, no shit. Because yesterday I was at the customer and I was talking to them.
Okay.
The guys like.
Good.
Who's that talking in the background? Is that Taylor? He's not a.
No, it's a friend of ours, Mark.
Oh, okay.
I'm propped up in his offices today in Cocoa Beach, Florida.
Right, okay. You mentioned that.
So I think that's about all the time we have for today. I think you've done a good job of taking us through your trip and your planning and how you plan to do it, and some of the things that you found along the way. So that's been helpful for me. I learned a couple of things about flightnetwork.com and Rome to Rio. That was pretty interesting.
Let me see.
So.
All right, cool. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate
Absolutely.
it, guys.
And we will talk to everybody next time. Bye-bye.
Bye.